I'd love to introduce to you Eli Shackelford. Eli is a friend of ours who has actually recently joined the Christian Center of Park City as the director of programming. And so we'll invite Eli to come on up. And while he's doing that, would you just give him a round of applause? Just welcome Eli.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. So good to be here with you guys. Man, this place has grown since last time I was here. It's awesome. Not just the place, too, because I got to interact with a few of you this morning. The people here, you guys are crushing it. I'm brand new at the Christian Center in Park City, so I'm down in Heber here and there. We talk about Heber all the time because this little city's got a thing going, and you guys are part of it. I just so believe that God has a dream and a hope for you to really be the lifeblood of what's happening here in Heber. Thanks for having me. I am from North Carolina originally. The only reason I tell you that is that if I mess anything up, I can just be like, North Carolina, y'all. Because I do mess things up. Like if I tell a story about blowing something up or slapping somebody, North Carolina, y'all. I'm from North Carolina, but I made questionable choices in my younger years. So I did 10 years hard time in Wisconsin as a youth pastor. That's the job, if you're unfamiliar with it, where you're on call 24 hours. You make about the same that your high schoolers you're working with make, and people ask you constantly, are you ever going to get another job or a real job? I loved that job. Man, those were 10 great years. Just loved it. Moved from Wisconsin to Utah about 13 or 14 years ago. Utah is truly home now. We love it here. My kids are all into the outdoors. All my kids grew up here. We climb, we snowboard, we hike, we kind of do it all. If anybody's heard of the Whirl, my daughter just set a record as the youngest woman to ever complete that. That's the Wasatch Ultimate Ridge Link Up. You should all look at it. Yeah, thank you. I was a pastor at K2 for a couple years. I've been pastoring a little church in Midvale called Cornerstone, also EFCA, for the last 9 years. And now I'm up at the Christian Center and just loving it. It's so different and new for me. And at the same time, it's so close and similar to what I've always done with my life. It's so close to my heart. As program director, I get to take our resources and tell them where to go. So when you guys spend money in the thrift store, when you guys interact with back to school basics like you did, by the way, Heber this year, I've heard it's for the first year ever, Heber really showed up at back to school basics. That's a program we do where we supply kids with backpacks and gift cards and things that they need for school. We're actually trying to supply them with hope, disguised as backpacks and gift cards and shoes and clothes and things that they need. Heber gave more to that and had more volunteers than anyone else. So you guys can give yourselves a hand for that. It was awesome. All those things that come into the Christian Center, I'm the guy now that gets to decide where they go. And I love that because I love people. Like, if there's one thing you should know about me, I just love people. I'm fascinated. I'm intrigued. If you and I could sit down for coffee or sparkly water or walk in the field or whatever you like to do, I would come back thinking about you all day because I love people. I just get such a kick out of the depth and just the capacity of human beings. So because of that, this statement of faith that Shane asked me to speak about is a perfect one for me because it interacts with people. Before I get there, let me do one announcement about an event we have coming up. It's called Hike for Hunger. Some of you guys have maybe been. Anybody been to Hike for Hunger before? Ooh, you guys should all come. It's next Saturday. This year, we're turning up the dial because it's our 25th anniversary as well. So this year, Hike for Hunger, for $15, it is the best thing going on in Utah. We rented out the whole Utah Olympic Park. We've got a jazz swing band coming. We've got food and drinks and chairlifts and rope swings. You can hike if you want, or you can watch people hike, or you can ride the chairlift up and down. But you should come out. It's $15 a person. There's a QR code on there. If we put that back up again, that you can scan if you want to come. If $15 is too much, don't tell anybody this. I have a secret VIP pass. And literally, I'll give it to anybody. So I'll be sure to leave it with your pastors and staff. Anybody that wants to come can come as my guest for free. All right, so not to be missed. It's going to be the best family event going on. That's next Saturday. Starts at 2 o'clock. This statement of faith, let's get that up there. This is a perfect one for me. Can anybody refresh me on this one? It's statement number 8, I think. You guys? No, I'm just kidding. I did read this one over quite a bit. So I hear that you've been going through these we believe statements. One of the things I love about the EFCA is the Just the capacity to hold a lot of different beliefs, and at the same time, a fellowship, a group of people that came together and said, these 10 things are really important to us. This one may be my favorite. I don't know that we're going to get through the whole thing, but it starts like this. We believe that God's justifying grace must not be separated from his sanctifying power and purpose. God commands us to love him supremely and others sacrificially, and to live out our faith with care for one another, compassion towards the poor, and justice for the oppressed. I'm going to be honest, sometimes the EFC gets out over their skis a little too far. Not as bad as I do. I mean, we all do that where we start using big and fancy words. This has a few fancy words in it, but this, you guys, is gold. This comes right from the mouth and life of Jesus. We can just keep that on the screen for a while. This point is so good. We believe that God's justifying grace must not be separated from his sanctifying power and purpose. It's a fancy way of saying what Jesus said over and over and over again. If you like what you're seeing, if you're digging what you're experiencing, walking around with me and seeing God's active power in the world, if you like what you're seeing, follow me. He says that over and over and over. It's throughout the record of his life. He's just saying, follow me, come with me. He was a very invitational sort of teacher, sort of rabbi. So he's constantly motioning people and drawing the biggest crowds that we would have trouble believing if we saw, follow me, follow me, follow me. If you like what you're seeing, if something in my words in my life has connected with you, follow me, live like me, serve like me, be like me, do life and interact with people the same way I do. God's grace, God's love, God's acceptance, welcome, inclusion, his invitation is for you. It's unfathomable. It goes so deep. It goes further than you could ever run, further than you could hide. You can't go far enough away to ever escape God's grace, God's presence, God's desire to be with you. So the beginning of the statement is just honing in on that. It's saying we believe that God's justifying grace. That's this all-encompassing grace. That's where Jesus was just constantly going, come with me. Follow me, hang out with me, do life with me. God's grace doesn't run out. It ain't a battery. It doesn't have a bottom, a limit. It doesn't have an end or a stop. There's no conclusion to it. There's no time for you where it's too late, you're too far gone, you've been there or done that. God's grace is just always welcoming, always drawing, always inviting. When Jesus pauses to love someone, to heal people, he says things like this, if you see me, you've seen the Father. That's John 14:9. If you've seen me, if you've experienced me, you've experienced the same heart of God, because Jesus came to reveal who God was and what God is like. If something about your version of God doesn't look like Jesus, then something is off about it, because Jesus is God in the human form. Come to say, this is the heart of God for you. You want to be part of it? Follow me. That's what this statement is getting to. God, according to the life and picture we have of Jesus, God is full of grace. He's full of love. He's full of welcoming. He's got a place for you. He's got a home for you, for every one of you. What I love is he's got a home for every single one of us. Everyone here in Heber City, God is saying, come see what I'm doing. Come see what I want to do, and come see who I want to be in your life. If you haven't experienced God's grace, by the way, when we meet outside, if you want to come meet me, if you haven't ran into this story of grace, come ask me about it. I would love to introduce you. I would love to introduce you. Best thing I've ever found in my life, and I found it through people. You'll always experience God's grace through people. And a person can connect you, can introduce you, and that's just the start of your journey. We say God's grace must not be separated from his sanctifying power and purpose. That's because God has bigger hopes, bigger dreams than you can have for yourself. I love this quality about God. As a parent, one of my favorite things to remind myself, especially when I'm nervous about my kids, when I'm worried about my kids, when my kids are going this way and I want them to go this way, God loves them and cares for them far more than I have the capacity to do. That's been so freeing as a parent, just to step into that realization. I don't always live that way. I don't always think that way, but when I remind myself, God, you care about my kids more than I do. God, you love my kids deeper than I do, and you're more invested in them than I do. That allows me to be able to hand them off to God. And when I turn that back on myself and I'm like, oh yeah, this works both ways. God loves me more than I know. God knows me. This is a crazy thought. God knows you. God knows me better than we know ourselves. And even with that knowledge, God's like, come on, I've got something for you. And it's going to be great. God's inviting us, and through this statement, these people that put this together are really showing us the combination of this sanctifying grace with power and purpose. 2 weeks ago, maybe more, I'm not real good with dates. I'm from North Carolina. 2 weeks ago, back to school basics. We were running this thing, and it was a madhouse, y'all. We did 1,583 kids came through the line. With each of those kids came a couple grandparents, a couple babies. We had like 3,000 people in a building about this size, not all at the same time. It was just a line nonstop all day. I had to run the counseling table for a minute. I'm sure you guys can all see the issue with that without me explaining it. I had to run the counseling table because the counselor was doing some translating. It was a little crazy. My job was easy. I mean, I just handed people a card and said, do you know we have free counseling services in Spanish and in English? So I was doing that. And this one lady came by me, and she didn't really look at me. And she's like, yes, I'm aware, and kept going. So I started standing up. She put both hands on the table, and she said, Valentina, that's one of our counselors, Valentina saved my life. And I was like, oh. You know when you're just like busy in life and then all of a sudden time stops for a second because you realize you're at the edge of a significant conversation? Yeah, you do, I do, we've all been there. So all of a sudden, we just tuned into each other, and she told me this story about being on the very edge of not having an actual life anymore and making a desperate call to the Christian Center and meeting a bilingual counselor who she credits with saving her life. That's purpose and that's power that Valentina got to exercise and experience because she'd received the grace of God. God's grace cannot be separated, and it leads us into purpose and power. I heard more stories like that. Some of them were crazy. Just from my one day at Back to School Basics, it was my first event at the Christian Center. Many of you guys know what I'm talking about because you've been there as well. Maybe you've been on the other end of that. Maybe you've been on the receiving end of grace. Maybe you've been the one that needed hope. Maybe you've been the one that offered hope. But God's grace leads to purpose and power if we'll step into it. And that will lead to the most fulfilling life we can have. It's available for you anytime you want it. Anytime. No matter who you are, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done. God, I'm in need of your grace. And as you step into it, as you walk in it, you connect it with purpose and power. A close friend of mine that I met about 4.5 years ago now, actually a very close friend of mine. I met her as a pastor. She came to my church because she had to do community service for drug-related crimes. She'd been in a lot of trouble. So she helped me with the food bank for a couple weeks, maybe a month. And then she said, oh, what else happens here? And I go, well, church, we do a church here too. So then she came to church on Sunday. I baptized her about 3 weeks ago. It was awesome. She was a recovering alcoholic, and I remember the first time she got a job coming out of jail, and I said, so she's so excited. She's telling me about her job, and I go, where do you work? State liquor store. Yeah, y'all probably know her, actually. Lots of you guys have probably. State liquor store, and I was like, Shantae, and I wouldn't use her name if she didn't mind. I was like, Shantae, why are you working at a liquor store as a recovering alcoholic? She laughed at me. I get that a lot. You know what she told me? This is great. She slowed down her speech like people do when they're speaking to a child, which cued me in that something genius was about to come. And she said, that's why I work there. That's why I work there. I know what people are going through because I've been there, and I get to care for people all day long. I'm like, you care for people in the liquor store? She said, not everybody, but the ones that need it, because I can see that they need it. Sometimes it's just a small prayer. Sometimes it's just a smile. But I care for hundreds of people a day because I see people who have needs. I'm there for it. Those are pretty much her words. That's purpose and power, man. That's her connecting the grace of God in her life to the purpose and power that God offers her. Now, I've never met most of you. I actually have seen, I saw some very familiar faces today, some old friends that I hadn't expected to see, so that was fun. But most of you, I don't know. But I do know this. If you're living with purpose and power, you have stepped into God's grace, and if you're not, I would encourage you to go back to the fountain of grace. I would encourage you to go back and really do some work and ask, have I really accepted that God has a place for me? That God welcomes me into his family with open arms? Have I received that in a way that I can stop trying so hard? I can stop wearing masks that we all wear. I can stop doing this and that and just be in the presence of God. Grace leads us to power and to purpose. What would change for us? I'm still living in the valley, but I'm going to be up here soon. So I'm looking for properties right now. So soon it will be in us. What would change for us in Heber City if each one of you who go to work, who go to places that I'll never go to and see people that I'll never see or meet, if each one of you stepped into the purpose that I'm talking about with my friend Shantae and this counselor, Valentina, if each one of you understood that you're the one to care for the people in your life, that you're the one to share grace with whoever crosses your path. Here's one thing. You'd stop watching the clock at work and you'd start watching the people. You'd stop dreading Monday and start wondering who God's going to bring to you today, who God's going to cross your path with. You'd start looking for the same people that my friend Shantae is looking for regularly. You'd start looking for the same people that God is looking for, and you'd start seeing them. And when you do, it's a little overwhelming at first. I got to be honest, because you start seeing need everywhere, and you start seeing people that are so hungry for the grace that only God gives us. Purpose and power. You're here today because someone, somewhere, at some time saw you and shared with you. Everything about God that is shared comes from a human being. I love that God set it up that way. We'll get moments in the mountains or in the ocean. I love the ocean too. We'll get moments where God will connect with us, just God and us. But almost everything else comes through people. And you're here because you got here through a person. You're walking with God if you are, or you're investigating God, or you're having curiosity and questions about God because you've interacted with a person, a human being, a people that said, hey, let me tell you about this. What would happen for Heber if each one of you left here this morning going, oh yeah, I've kind of forgotten about my purpose. I've kind of left that at the door. Kind of just going through life, and I want to pick that back up again. We believe that God's justifying grace must not be separated from his sanctifying power and purpose. The next part of this, I'm obviously not going to get through the whole thing. That's okay. There's a clock on the back, so I'll know when to stop. The next part of this is so good, you guys. I love this. I build my life around these words. God commands us to love him supremely and others sacrificially, and to live out our faith with care for one another, compassion towards the poor, and justice for the oppressed. There it is. Again, this isn't me telling you what to do. I love that a bunch of people got together in a room like this and hammered these things out over a period of years and years. They adjust them every year too. I don't know if you know that. Not every point in the statement of faith gets adjusted every year, but something does every single year. These smart people convene together and use big words and sometimes remove big words so we can understand better, and they work this out, and this one comes directly from the mouth of Jesus. Jesus in John 14:9 says, if you love me, John 14:15, if you love me, you'll do what I say. John 14:9, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. John 15:9, I only do what I see the Father doing. So Jesus is connecting everything about his life and his words to God the Father, as I mentioned before, and I want to take you to a story from Matthew. This is kind of near the end of Matthew, but it's not at the end. We're going to go to the end at the end of the day. Matthew is kind of always hinting at us and winking and like drawing the reader in. I think he got that from Jesus. Jesus is funny, y'all. I don't know if you know that. If you read it closely and you look for the humor, it's throughout. Matthew's pretty funny too. Not as funny as Luke, in my opinion. But this is kind of near the end in Matthew's telling. We don't always know exactly what was going on or what was happening when Matthew tells these stories. Matthew was a guy that had directly encountered Jesus. He had been one of those people at the very end of his life, and Jesus literally saved his life. He had been one of those people that was making destructive decisions. He was a tax collector, and Jesus had walked into his house and said, bro, even you are welcome here. I like Matthew's story because if Matthew's in, we all got a chance. So Matthew tells this story. You guys have probably heard this one before. It's fairly famous. It's from Matthew 22. Another teacher at the time, Matthew calls him an expert of the law, is testing Jesus in this. You may know where I'm going. And he says, teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus quotes two places in the Bible to answer. He quotes Deuteronomy 6:5 and Leviticus 19:18. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And he responds, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second, the guy didn't ask for a second, like, oh, that's good. Jesus said, nope. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. We could meditate on this next part of this passage all day. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commands. Do you hear what Jesus is saying? He's like taking his Bible, their Bible, the Bible we still have, by the way, the Old Testament, we call it. It was the Jewish scriptures. He's taking that whole book. It was in scrolls. Who's counting? He takes the whole book. He's like, everything in here rests on these two things. And I hope you caught this. This is Matthew being kind of cute because he's already hinted at this throughout his book. He'll just describe it later for the people that didn't catch it. But Matthew is saying, in Jesus' eyes, these two things could not be separated. They could not be torn apart. These two things are intertwined and interconnected. That's why we've said often, churches around the country have said, love God, love people, right? Because of this command. And that's essentially what this piece of the statement of faith is saying. Love God, love people. It's as if Jesus was saying, you can't have one without the other. It's as if Jesus was saying, these two are connected. It's as if Jesus was saying, these two things can't be separated. You've probably heard this before. Most of you probably have, but imagine if a church took this seriously. Imagine if a church came together and said, since we can't love God without loving people, we need to get this formula right. We need to figure out how to do this well. People become super important. I'll tell you what would happen. Your expansion would have to be expanded. You'd have to expand on your expansion, and your impact throughout your city would go like wildfire. People love being loved. I don't know if you know that. People love being loved. When you love somebody well, even if I took you out for coffee or sparkly water or whatever your thing is, if I sat down and just listened to you with curiosity, and I would be curious because I am, and then I asked questions, you would walk away feeling honored and probably loved. And when people feel loved, they come closer. What would it be like for a church to take this seriously? Love people, love God. This is funny to me, maybe not to anybody else. This will just show you what a dork I was when I was a kid. I got married very young, 20 and 21. I guess in Utah, that's not young, is it? My bad. I got married at the very average age of 20 and 21. And I can remember praying one time and asking God, I was nervous that I loved my wife more than God, right? Which I kind of did. Don't tell anybody, especially don't tell God. But I was praying. I was actually walking through one of the places I walked to pray, which was a graveyard, also kind of weird. By the way, poor God, man. Some of our prayers, like seriously, of all the things somebody could be praying about, some kid, 21 years old, is walking around going, God, I think I love my wife more than I love you. I think, God, what am I going to do? Now, we're not supposed to put idols. We're not supposed to put anything about God, but God just cleared this one up for me so easily. Probably because even God runs out of patience sometimes. God often speaks in my voice, so he was like, Eli, you dork. When you love your wife, you're loving me. These two things are connected. The better you love your wife, the better you're loving me. These two things go together. As you serve and sacrifice and surrender and give your life, your time, your energy for your wife, you're doing all that for me. Quit being a dork and go pray about something seriously. They cannot be separated. This is how Matthew says it. This is how Matthew records Jesus saying it. At one point, this is a little further on. So again, Matthew's telling this story, right? He's helping us connect priorities of Jesus, and they fit right in with this statement. Right in with this statement about how our grace, or God's grace, leads to our purpose, our power, And then out of that, we turn that on people for our fulfillment. So this is pretty early on. This is Matthew chapter 5. Jesus says, if you're offering your gift at the altar, and there remember your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, and then come and offer your gift. Now, we don't have a lot of offerings or altars, not the kind Jesus was talking about. But if you're going to church, we have church, right? Here we are. If you're going to church and you remember that you and somebody else aren't good, what Jesus wants us to think is, oh, me and God aren't good. I need to go fix that or attempt to fix it. Or I need to at least go make a move towards that because that is instrumental in my relationship with God. Go fix your people problem and you'll be fixing your God problem. The great commandment is 2, not 1, because God and people are connected. I hope I've said that enough. I'll probably say it a few more times. There's no Jesus in the Bible without people. We have Jesus through the context of people. He came, this blows my mind. He came in the form of something he'd never been, to do something he'd never done before, to connect with people. Separated from God, to reconnect a people who were separated so that people could be eternally connected with God. Seriously, the God with us thing from Isaiah it's incredible. Humbled, lowered, one of us to be with us, to reveal the heart of God that is for us. First go and make something right with people. Love people. Invite people. Welcome people. See people. There's only one place in the whole New Testament that the word religion is used semi-positively. I think it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, actually. I think even this place, I'm like, I think James is being funny. It's James chapter 1, verse 27. Some of you guys probably know this verse. James says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure. By the way, this is James, brother of Jesus, writing these words. So he's watched Jesus, and he's thought about this. And he says, religion that God likes. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Hopefully you can hear the statement of faith we're talking about today in that passage from James, brother of Jesus. Pure religion. We don't use that word religion very often, and not always positively either. So we could say it like this. We could say love of God, or we could say worship of God. Worship that God wants to see is to care for people. God and people cannot be separated. We talk about worship services and worship events and worship in the park and worship nights. What if we talked about worship dinners where you get together and you listen to people? You speak into people's lives. You might actually bring God up in the conversation, or you might just care for people. God would say, yeah, that's the kind of worship I'm looking for. What if we talk about worship trips to the lake? I'm going to the lake with a friend that's a member of the church here today. Worship trips to the lake where you hang out and you ski and you paddleboard and you're together with people. Worship trips to the store where you're simply looking for image bearers, looking for another human that carries the image and the face and the heart of God. So you can have a little time of worship with a smile, with a word, with encouragement, with prayer. I know it would be weird. We're not going to start doing that, but we don't have to call it that. We should be doing that. I want to turn to a final passage. This is a well-known passage. This passage, interestingly enough, is often used to make people feel bad, like guilty and stuff. It's the end of Matthew. So again, Matthew's been drawing this out. He's all throughout. He's like, hey, look what Jesus is doing. Sometimes they're just hints. He's like winking at us, inviting us in to read the story deeper. Sometimes they're just hints, and sometimes they're real small and subtle. And then at the very end, he's like, for all y'all that missed it, check out this story. This story, since it was given at the back of Matthew, we always read it in the context of the end of Jesus' life. I think most things that Jesus said that Matthew captured were things he'd said over and over again. Certainly the Sermon on the Mount, that's what I live my life by. That's Matthew 5-7. That was probably Jesus' most popular message. He could have given that same message 100 times like people do. This one, now I'm just using artistic license. I don't know what Jesus was doing. I don't know the context of how he said this, but I know he was so clever and he was always finding ways to twist things a little bit. So I picture this one, Matthew 25. I picture him and his friends around a campfire. They might have been walking around a lake, but I picture them around a campfire, and I picture them telling stories of all that they've gone through. So Peter, he's the guy, they ripped the roof off Peter's house and lowered a paralyzed guy in. One of the first things that happens in the Gospels, and Jesus is like, take up your mat and walk. So I can picture the disciples sitting around and being like, remember that time we tore the roof off your house, Peter? Or remember that time, Peter, you saw Jesus on the water and you're like, I want to do that, and you jumped in and sank? or remember that time? Like, I picture him just all these memories, and Jesus speaking up and goes, hey guys, remember that time I got really sick? People kind of look at him and they're like, I must have missed that day. Was that before my time? I don't remember him being sick. I remember him healing a lot of sick people. Well, do you remember when I was in prison? Do you remember when you found me buck naked with nothing on and you brought me clothes? And at this point, the boys, probably the ladies too, around the fire, like, he's lost it. We knew this day was coming. He's been seeing some pretty crazy stuff. He's lost it. And then Jesus turns this whole thing into a parable, and he goes, whatever you did for people, he calls it the least of these. In their society, they would have had no problem identifying the least of these, because a bunch of them were in his group. They would have had no problem saying, oh, we know what the least of these are, because those are the people Jesus ate with and hung out with, walked with. That guy walked a lot of miles, by the way, and ate a lot of food, often with the least of these. Whatever you did for the least of these, whatever you did for people in need, and this is where Matthew's like, for the people that don't get it, Jesus goes, you did that for me. He tells this huge parable, this parable about people who, just in their serving of other people, Jesus says, that is directly in service of me. Thank you. The scary part, I think the guilt part that people use to guilt us, is he reverses that as well, and he goes, remember when I was in prison and you didn't clothe me? By then they know, they're like, this is a trick. Remember that? Whatever you didn't do for the least of these, you didn't do for me. Remember when I was on the street and you walked right by me? It blows my mind how if I put a MacBook, I'm not a Mac guy, but most people are. If I put a MacBook on the street, nobody would just walk by that and not stop and look at it, look around, wonder what it's doing there. And yet we can walk by human beings made in the image of God and just look away. I want to do a quick little thing with you. I promise this won't be weird, because I am going to make you close your eyes, but it's not like a weird thing where somebody's going to poke you or do something like that. So close your eyes for me for just a minute. And think of 5 messages that impacted your life or changed your life. You have to come up with 5. That's kind of a competition if you're competitive. 5 messages that impacted or changed your life. And then raise your hand when you have all 5 of them. You've still got your eyes closed, so you won't really know who won, but I will. I'm just kidding. There's no winner. 5 messages that impacted or changed your life. Hey, we've got 1, 2. Keep going. All right, cool. A couple more. Another one. Nice. I'm not like one of those fake preachers that's like, I see a hand in the back, and there's no hand in the back. There are people with actual hands up. That's good enough. You can open your eyes for just a minute. I probably missed some, but I saw maybe a dozen people in the time frame I got you, thought of 5. Close your eyes one more time. I promise this won't be weird. Raise your hand when you think of 5 people that have impacted or influenced your life. Awesome. Thank you. Almost every hand goes up in seconds. You guys can open your eyes at this point. What I want you to remember about that is that people reach people. People reach people. That's kind of hard for a pastor to hear, because I've done a lot of messages, I hope. And as I don't know, I'm kind of a nerd too, so I could probably come up with a dozen messages that I'm like, oh, here's where my life shifted, here's where my life changed. But most of us, if this wasn't a church group, I'd say 5 movies, 5 speeches, 5 whatevers. Most of us struggle to find that, especially quickly. And yet, almost all of us can instantly identify people that have changed our lives. You find your greatest fulfillment when you connect with other people. If your picture of God is anything other than a being who gives everything to connect and care for every single human being, I would challenge that as an unbiblical picture of God. The God revealed in Jesus is all in, all the time, for everybody. And I'm picturing him grinning a little bit as he's inviting you in, as he's saying, man, I've got this pool of grace, and it's bigger than you can imagine. And when you really find it and discover it, it'll turn into purpose and power. That purpose and power will lead you to invest in the lives of people. And the people each one of us respect the most, we respect because they give their lives away, don't we? Historically, or in our lives, the people that led you here, the people that lead me here, the people we respect the most, the people we look up to and admire, they're the people who give their lives away for other people. I'm gonna wrap this up and pray for you guys with a quick prayer. I think I got this prayer from Andy Stanley. I don't know, I've been praying it for years. I'm gonna pray it over you. It's super simple, so you'll be able to remember it. And then I'm gonna ask you to pray it throughout this week, because I am telling you, I prayed this prayer for a long time in my life, and it changed my life. It's simple, it goes like this. God, let me see people how you see people, so I can love people how you love people. That's it. So I'm just gonna pray that over you. God, over Mountain View today, would you move in our hearts and our lives, God, that we could see, hear, know, experience people, that we could see people the way you see people, so that we can begin to love people with our purpose and our power that you've gifted to us through your grace, so that we can love people the way you love people. Thank you that you are the exact image of the invisible God. We'll give the rest of the morning to you in your name.